What if the history you were taught was actually a crime scene? What if the most powerful gods the world has ever known didn't vanish? They were deleted. Centuries ago, a war was fought in the shadows of the Nile and the peaks of Axum. It wasn't a war for land, but a war for the human soul. The early church feared a power so ancient and so black that it threatened the very foundation of Rome. They burned the scrolls, they broke the statues, and they tried to scrub 12 names from the memory of mankind. But you can't kill a vibration. Today, we are breaking the seal on the erased pantheon. We're diving into the verdades prohibidas, the 12 African gods that the early church tried to bury under 2,000 years of silence. We are uncovering the spiritual technology, the forbidden rituals, and the hidden bloodlines that prove Africa was never the dark continent. It was the source of the light they tried to steal. This isn't just history, it's a reckoning. If you're ready to see the world as it truly is, join our circle, subscribe, hit that like button to feed the flame, and comment below. From which part of this ancient earth are you listening to these forbidden truths? The ancestors are watching. Under the relentless sun of what we now call Sudan, the sands of Meroe guard the secret of an engineering feat that official history conveniently chooses to overlook. While the northern pharaohs were in decline, the Black Kings of Kush were raising obelisks that weren't just monuments, but antennas for the divine. The wind carries the scent of dust and eternity, whispering about a wealth that wasn't measured in coin, but in stellar alignment. Call it a twist of fate or just plain irony, but the modern world seems more comfortable crediting aliens than admitting African hands mastered basalt with laser-like precision. Between the cracks of these stones lies the mystery of how an entire civilization was wiped from academic maps, leaving behind pyramids more numerous than those in Egypt. The real conflict isn't found in the ruins, but in the deafening silence of textbooks trying to dim the shine of these black crowns. A journey through these lands isn't just physical. It's a deep dive into a sacred geometry that fused iron with spirituality. Every angle of the Meroe pyramids was calculated to align the sovereign soul with the heart of the Orion constellation, a bridge between human clay and the breath of the gods. This was a culture that understood true sovereignty comes from the harmony between what is above and what is below, no permission required. Spiritually, what remains there is the manifestation of a power that time couldn't quite corrode, the certainty of immortality through lineage. The purification rituals in the Nile's waters weren't mere symbolism, but a tech of healing that balanced the elements within the body and the state. For them, politics was an extension of liturgy, and every royal decision passed through the sieve of oracles who read destiny in the shifting dunes. Even under the weight of millennia of neglect, the stones of Kush continue to pulse with a frequency that defies colonial logic. There's something still vibrating in those ruins, a presence watching modern archaeologists with a sarcastic smirk, knowing the truth can't be buried forever. But while the silent obelisks guard the past, the shadows on the walls suggest that Rome's true fear was about to take human form in a boardroom far from these sands. In the shadows of the 4th century, the Roman Empire wasn't just expanding its borders, it was staging a spiritual coup d'etat. While the bishops in Nicaea were busy arguing over the nature of the divine, a much more sinister edit was happening to the African scrolls that didn't fit the new imperial brand. It's funny, in a dark way, how history remembers the piety of the early church, but conveniently forgets the smoke rising from the libraries of Alexandria and Axum. The mystery deepens when you realize they weren't just burning paper. They were trying to incinerate a worldview that saw the divine in the blackness of the soil and the rhythm of the stars. This wasn't a simple theological debate. It was a war against a pantheon that had governed the human soul for eons before a single stone of the Vatican was laid. The conflict was clear. If these 12 gods remained, the new Roman god would always have to share the throne with the architects of the sun. To walk the path of these suppressed deities is to understand that symbols like the ankh were never meant to be jewelry. They were blueprints for the flow of life force. In the hidden sanctuaries of the Ethiopian highlands, priests whispered names that could supposedly shift the weather or heal a broken lineage. These weren't idols to be feared, but mirrors of the self, showing a humanity that was already divine without needing an imperial decree to say so. The spiritual fallout of this erasure left a void that we still feel in our bones today. A sense of being untethered from a deep, melanated cosmic order. The miracles described in the new scriptures often bore a striking resemblance to the everyday science of the old African temples, only stripped of their original context and color. It's almost as if the new faith was a cover version of an ancient song, played by someone who didn't quite understand the rhythm, but wanted all the royalties. Yet despite the systematic scrubbing of the record, the essence of the 12 didn't just vanish into thin air. It went underground, literally and figuratively. They became the hidden ones, the spirits that moved through the cracks of the new religion, waiting for a generation that could handle the raw truth. And while the church thought they had buried these gods for good, they forgot that in Africa, things buried in the earth aren't dead. They are seeds waiting for the right kind of rain. In the heart of the Ethiopian highlands, the air is thin, and the scent of frankincense clings to the ancient stone like a second skin. Here, the transition from the old gods to the new faith wasn't a clean break, but a masterclass in spiritual camouflage. It's quite the irony that while the world looks to Rome for the true history of the cross, the most guarded secrets of the faith are actually locked away in the rock-hewn churches of Lalibela, protected by monks who haven't slept in 16 centuries. The mystery lies in what they call the tablet, sacred replicas of the Ark of the Covenant that are never seen by the public, whispered to be the true power source of the Aksumite Empire. These weren't just religious trinkets, they were described as artifacts of immense, terrifying energy that could level mountains and part seas. The early church tried to claim this power as their own, but they couldn't quite explain why the rituals to activate these objects required the ancient, forbidden chants of the Desert Fathers. The journey through this sacred landscape feels like walking through a living prophecy, where every carved pillar tells a story of a lineage that never actually submitted to the European gaze. They kept the secrets of the 12 gods alive by weaving their attributes into the faces of the saints, ensuring that even when a believer knelt before a new name, they were still honoring the old vibration. It was a brilliant, quiet rebellion, a way to keep the ancestors' frequency humming right under the nose of the inquisitors. Spiritually, this era represents the great masking, where the African understanding of the cosmos was forced to put on a new suit to survive the colonial winter. The connections are everywhere if you know where to look. The 12 apostles mirroring the 12 original cosmic principles, and the Trinity reflecting the ancient African triad of sky, earth, and water. It wasn't a conversion so much as it was a strategic hibernation, a preservation of the soul through a change of skin. Even today, the tension between what is seen and what is hidden remains the true pulse of the region. A reminder that some things are too powerful to be bought or sold. There's a certain satisfaction in knowing that despite every attempt to rewrite the past, the stones themselves refuse to lie. But as we look closer at these hidden altars, we begin to realize that the most dangerous secret wasn't an object at all, but a specific bloodline that was meant to be the true guardian of the flame. In the heart of the Ethiopian highlands, the air is thin, and the scent of frankincense clings to the ancient stone like a second skin. Here, The transition from the old gods to the new faith wasn't a clean break, but a masterclass in spiritual camouflage. It's quite the irony that while the world looks to Rome for the true history of the cross, the most guarded secrets of the faith are actually locked away in the rock-hewn churches of Lalibela, protected by monks who haven't slept in 16 centuries. The mystery lies in what they call the tabot, sacred replicas of the Ark of the Covenant that are never seen by the public, whispered to be the true power source of the Aksumite Empire. These weren't just religious trinkets. They were described as artifacts of immense, terrifying energy that could level mountains and part seas. The early church tried to claim this power as their own, but they couldn't quite explain why the rituals to activate these objects required the ancient, forbidden chants of the Desert Fathers. The journey through this sacred landscape feels like walking through a living prophecy, where every carved pillar tells a story of a lineage that never actually submitted to the European gaze. They kept the secrets of the 12 gods alive by weaving their attributes into the faces of the saints, ensuring that even when a believer knelt before a new name, they were still honoring the old vibration. It was a brilliant, quiet rebellion, a way to keep the ancestors' frequency humming right under the nose of the inquisitors. Spiritually, this era represents the great masking, where the African understanding of the cosmos was forced to put on a new suit to survive the colonial winter. The connections are everywhere if you know where to look. The 12 apostles mirroring the 12 original cosmic principles, and the Trinity reflecting the ancient African triad of sky, earth, and water. It wasn't a conversion so much as it was a strategic hibernation, a preservation of the soul through a change of skin. Even today, the tension between what is seen and what is hidden remains the true pulse of the region. A reminder that some things are too powerful to be bought or sold. There's a certain satisfaction in knowing that despite every attempt to rewrite the past, the stones themselves refuse to lie. But as we look closer at these hidden altars, we begin to realize that the most dangerous secret wasn't an object at all, but a specific bloodline that was meant to be the true guardian of the flame. In the humid emerald corridors of the West African coast, the whispers of the Orishas echo with a frequency that modern science is only just beginning to hum along to. It's funny, isn't it? How the world dismissed these forces as mere superstition while simultaneously plundering the very lands they protected. Long before the term psychology was coined in a European office, the priests of Ifa were mapping the human subconscious with the precision of a master cartographer, using 16 sacred palm nuts to unlock the digital code of the soul. The mystery doesn't lie in whether these gods exist, but in why the global narrative worked so hard to turn them into demons or folktales. The conflict was never about theology. It was about the raw, untapped power of the ash, the divine life force that flows through everything from a blade of grass to a thunderstorm. By labeling this ancient spiritual technology as black magic, the authorities hope to sever the connection between the people and their own internal battery. To witness a ritual of the 7 African powers is to see a civilization refusing to be deleted from the cosmic hard drive. Each vibration of the drum is a data packet, carrying the history of a lineage that survived the Middle Passage by hiding their gods inside the statues of Catholic saints. It was the ultimate Trojan horse. While the masters thought their slaves were praying to the Virgin Mary, they were actually fueling the fire of Shango, the god of thunder, right under the overseer's whip. Spiritually, this preservation was an act of supreme intelligence, a way of ensuring that the African identity remained unhackable by foreign invaders. They understood that symbols like the double-headed axe or the iron chain were more than just icons. They were mnemonic devices for a complex system of ethics, justice, and natural law. It turns out that the forbidden knowledge they carried wasn't a curse, but a survival manual for a world that had lost its rhythm. Today, the irony is peaking as the descendants of those who tried to burn these traditions are now turning to them for healing and meaning. The Orishas didn't need a temple of marble to survive. They built their sanctuary inside the very blood of their people. But as this ancient energy begins to surge back into the global consciousness, a new question arises. What happens when the gods who were once erased decide to finally speak back? In the deep limestone silence of the great Zimbabwe ruins, the stones are stacked without a single drop of mortar, held together by nothing but gravity and a mathematical genius that historians once tried to credit to anyone, literally anyone, but the people who actually lived there. It's almost comical how hard the 19th century explorers tried to invent lost Phoenicians or white queens to explain these massive granite walls. They couldn't wrap their heads around the fact that a complex African empire was thriving here while half of Europe was still figuring out how to keep the mud out of their huts. The mystery of this place isn't just in the architecture, but in the Zimbabwe birds, the soapstone sentinels that once guarded the enclosures. These weren't just decorative carvings, they were spiritual bridgeheads between the living and the ancestors, symbols of a royal lineage that claimed to speak with the sky itself. The conflict here was a slow, painful erasure where the British South Africa Company didn't just loot the gold, they looted the identity, turning a sacred center of power into a curiosity for a colonial museum. Walking through the narrow, high-walled passages of the great enclosure, you feel the weight of a silence that was forced upon the land. This was a city of trade and gold, yes, but it was also a cathedral of the earth, where the Shona people practiced a spirituality that saw the divine in the very marrow of the rocks. Their rituals were designed to maintain the Maat of the south, a balance between the king's health and the fertility of the soil, a concept that was forbidden simply because it proved that Africans didn't need a foreign god to tell them how to be righteous. Spiritually, Great Zimbabwe represents the invisible backbone of the continent, a reminder that African power was always structural, grounded, and permanent. The spiritual technology used here involved the resonance of sound within the stone walls, creating a frequency that facilitated communal trance and ancestral communication. It was a civilization that understood that true power isn't loud. It's solid, enduring, and patient enough to wait for the colonizers' empires to crumble back into the dust. Even now, as the wind whistles through the gaps in the granite, there's a sense that the site is reclaiming its own story. The irony is that the more they tried to de-Africanize these ruins, the more the stones seemed to pulse with a stubborn ancient energy that eventually fueled the liberation movements of the modern era. But the story of Great Zimbabwe is only one piece of a much larger map, a map that leads to a secret kingdom tucked away in the rainforests, where the gods of iron were forging a different kind of destiny. In the humid, shadowed heart of the Benin rainforest, the air carries the metallic tang of bronze and the scent of damp earth, a place where the Oba was not just a king, but a living portal to the divine. It's a bit of a cosmic joke that the British punitive expedition of 1897 claimed they were civilizing the region, while they were busy looting thousands of intricate bronze plaques that portrayed a sophisticated court etiquette Europe wouldn't master for centuries. They saw idolatry, where there was actually a highly advanced system of historical record-keeping cast in metal that never rusts. The mystery lies in the guild of Egun Eronwon, the master casters, who used the lost wax technique to capture the spirits of the ancestors in copper and tin. These bronzes weren't just art, they were witnesses, believed to hold the actual presence of the kings and gods they depicted. The conflict was a brutal cultural decapitation. When the British stole the bronzes, they weren't just taking treasure, they were kidnapping the collective memory and the spiritual protection of an entire nation, leaving a gaping wound in the psychic fabric of the kingdom. To understand the Benin's spiritual technology is to understand the power of Ogun, the god of iron and war, who provided the tools for both creation and destruction. The rituals involved the forging of sacred swords that could supposedly cut through the veil between worlds, allowing the Oba to consult with those who came before. It was a culture of discipline and metallic precision, where every coral bead on a royal vestment was a prayer, and every strike of the blacksmith's hammer was a heartbeat intended to keep the kingdom in sync with the cosmos. Spiritually, the fall of Benin was a dark night of the soul for the continent, as the physical anchors of their history were scattered across the museums of the West. Yet, there is a profound irony in the fact that these forbidden artifacts became the very things that forced the world to acknowledge African genius. By sitting in the British Museum, the bronzes acted like silent missionaries of the truth, radiating a power that no glass case could contain, and reminding every visitor that the dark continent was actually a land of radiant light and sophisticated iron. Today, the movement to bring the bronzes home is more than just a legal battle. It's a spiritual reclamation of the African crown. The energy of the Benin kingdom hasn't dissipated. It has merely been waiting for its children to develop the strength to demand their heritage back. As these sacred objects begin their slow journey home, they carry with them the promise of a restored identity, but they also serve as a warning that some gods cannot be caged forever, and the reckoning for their theft is only just beginning. Deep in the sun-bleached expanse of the Dogon country, nestled against the high cliffs of Bandiagara, lies a secret that makes modern astronomers look like they're just playing catch-up. It's almost laughable how the experts scrambled to explain how a people without telescopes knew about the orbital period of Sirius B, a star invisible to the naked eye, centuries before Western science even suspected it existed. They tried to claim some random traveler must have shared the info, because surely a primitive tribe couldn't be decoding the binary secrets of the universe on their own, right? The mystery centers on the Nomo, amphibious beings from the Sirius system who supposedly visited Earth to seed the foundations of civilization. These aren't just fishy tories for the Dogon, they are the masters of the water, architects of a spiritual system so complex it maps the vibration of matter itself. The conflict here is a silent war of narratives. One side calls it myth, while the other lives by a celestial calendar that has remained accurate for over 700 years, proving that the stars were speaking to Africa long before they spoke to NASA. The journey into Dogon cosmology is a masterclass in sacred symbols, specifically the Amma's egg, the cosmic womb that shattered to create the plurality of the world. Their rituals involve the Sigi dance, performed only once every 60 years to align with the stars, where masks become vessels for primordial energy. It's a culture where every granary door and every woven cloth is a mathematical proof, a way of keeping the forbidden knowledge of our extraterrestrial origins woven into the very fabric of daily life. Spiritually, the Dogon remind us that the African mind was always interstellar, viewing the human body not as a cage, but as a miniature version of the entire cosmos. They understood that we are made of the same stardust that fuels the distant suns, a truth that Western spirituality is only now starting to embrace. Their tech wasn't made of silicon, but of consciousness and observation, a direct line to the source that didn't require an imperial middleman or a church steeple to reach the heavens. As the modern world looks up at the night sky with expensive lenses, the Dogon continue to look inward, knowing that the map of the stars is already written in their blood. There is a delicious irony in the fact that the most isolated people on the planet might be the ones with the most advanced understanding of our place in the galaxy. But as we follow the trail of these star gods, we find ourselves moving from the cliffs of Mali toward the mysterious, fog-shrouded peaks of the moon, where another erased power was once whispered into existence. Deep in the mist-veiled peaks of the Mountains of the Moon, the legendary Rwenzori Range, dwells a power that the early mapmakers of Europe tried to dismiss as a traveler's hallucination. It's quite the irony that while the Western world was obsessed with finding the physical source of the Nile, they completely missed the spiritual source that the local guardians had been protecting for millennia. These peaks weren't just landmarks, they were considered the spine of the continent, the jagged altar where the heavens touched the earth and whispered secrets of the first dawn. The mystery revolves around the ancient cult of the moon deities, entities whose names were scrubbed from the history books because they represented a lunar, feminine power that the solar, patriarchal empires of the North couldn't control. The conflict was a quiet, cold war of geography. By discovering these mountains and renaming them, colonial explorers attempted to strip the land of its indigenous sanctity. They wanted a mountain they could climb and plant a flag on, not a god they had to kneel before and listen to in the silence of the frost. To understand the rituals of the high peaks is to understand the language of the mist, a form of meditation where the freezing air and the thin oxygen were used to induce visions of the primordial past. The priests of these heights wore garments made of rare mountain moss and carried staffs of weathered cedar, acting as the bridge between the glacier and the jungle below. This was a forbidden ecology, where the weather wasn't just climate, but a mood of the divine that could be influenced through the precise vibration of sacred flutes. Spiritually, the Mountains of the Moon served as the ultimate safe house for the African psyche, a place so high and so treacherous that the influence of foreign dogmas simply couldn't breathe. They remind us that there are parts of the African soul that remain unconquered because they exist in a frequency of cold, hard truth that no imperial heat can melt. It's a spiritual resilience that mirrors the glaciers themselves, slow, massive, and capable of carving the landscape of the future without saying a single word. Today, as the ice on these peaks begins to recede due to a changing world, the old secrets are literally melting back into the rivers, flowing down to the people once again. There's a poetic justice in the idea that the erased wisdom of the moon is being redistributed through the water we drink, waking up the DNA of a generation that has forgotten how to look up. But as these lunar secrets descend, they meet another ancient force rising from the southern plains, a power that understands that the bone is just as sacred as the star. In the vast, shifting silence of the Kalahari, the San people, the first ancestors, carry a library of the cosmos in a language of clicks that sounds like the earth itself is speaking. It is a bit of a cosmic snub that while the developed world was busy inventing the clock, the San had already mastered time travel through the Hitsi Ibib, a shape-shifting energy that defies every law of physics taught in Oxford. They don't need dusty archives because their history is etched into the very marrow of their bones. A forbidden survival guide that has outlasted every empire that tried to claim their land. The mystery lies in the shaman's dance, a ritual of such intense heat and vibration that it causes the boiling of the blood, allowing the soul to leave the body and heal the fabric of reality. This isn't just a campfire performance. It's a high-stakes spiritual surgery where the dancer enters the half-death to battle the invisible arrows of disease and discord. The conflict arose when colonial experts labeled these profound metaphysical journeys as mere trance states or primitive folklore, terrified by a people who could see through the veil of the material world without a single telescope or microscope. To walk with the San is to understand that the great hunter in the sky isn't a myth, but a living map of human destiny written in the stars of the Milky Way. Their symbols, the eland, the mantis, the rainbow, are more than just rock art. They are portals, painted with a mixture of blood and pigment that acts as a physical anchor for the divine. It was a tech of connection, ensuring that the human heart stayed in sync with the heartbeat of the desert, a harmony so perfect that the concept of ownership or war felt like a foreign disease. Spiritually, the San represent the root system of all humanity, the original guardians of the flame who knew that the greatest power lies in vulnerability and movement. Their forbidden truth is that the earth doesn't belong to us. We are merely guests in its dream. This realization is a direct threat to the modern obsession with borders and extraction, which is why their way of life has been systematically pushed to the margins. Yet you can't kill a dream that was dreamt at the beginning of time. Today, as the world chokes on its own complexity, the ancient click of the San echoes like a reset button for the human soul. There is a profound irony in the fact that the most ancient people might hold the most futuristic solutions for a planet in crisis. Their story isn't a tragedy of a fading culture, but a masterclass in endurance, waiting for us to remember that we are all made of the same desert dust. But even as the Kalahari sun sets, the trail of the erased leads us toward the great Zimbabwe once more, where the stones are starting to whisper about a queen who never truly died. In the sun-drenched corridors of history, the name Queen Sheba, or Makeda, is often treated as a romantic footnote, a guest star in the biblical narrative of King Solomon. It's a classic piece of historical irony that the Western world portrays her as a seeker of wisdom from a foreign king, while the African record suggests she was the one bringing the heavyweight knowledge to the table. She wasn't just a queen, she was the architect of a trade empire that turned the Red Sea into a private lake and made the world's gold standard look like pocket change. The mystery doesn't lie in her beauty, but in the Kebra Nagast, the glory of the kings, a text that reveals a much more dangerous truth. The Ark of the Covenant didn't just wander off, it was brought to Ethiopia as part of a divine transfer of power. The conflict here is a tug-of-war over the true presence of God. If the throne of Zion moved to the highlands of Aksum, then the entire religious map of the Middle East and Europe becomes a secondary story. It's no wonder the early church tried to keep this connection quiet. It's hard to claim a monopoly on the divine when the real thing is sitting in an African chapel. To understand Sheba's journey is to understand the Solomonic lineage, a bloodline that didn't just rule a country but guarded a frequency. The rituals of her court involved the use of rare frankincense and gold, not as luxury items, but as spiritual conduits to maintain the light of the world. This was a culture where the queen was the hand of the spirit, a bridge between the ancient wisdom of the Queen of the South and the emerging world of the North. It was a forbidden female authority that Rome, with its patriarchal structures, found absolutely terrifying. Spiritually, Sheba represents the Black Madonna archetype long before it was co-opted, the dark, fertile, and wise feminine power that birthed a nation of Lion of Judah warriors. Her legacy is the lion's breath, a spiritual resilience that allowed Ethiopia to remain the only African nation never to be fully colonized. It's a frequency of sovereignty that suggests that true power isn't taken. It's inherited through a sacred pact with the Creator, a pact that doesn't need a signature from a European diplomat to be valid. Today, the spirit of Makeda lives on in the fierce independence of the African identity, a reminder that the Queen of the South still rises to judge the present age. There is a delicious irony in the fact that while historians argue over her existence, her descendants are still guarding the very artifacts she supposedly stole. But as we look at the crown of Sheba, we realize that the gold is just a reflection. The real treasure is the erased map of the 12 gods that she carried in her heart, leading us back to the most forbidden city of all. In the blistering silence of the Danakil Depression, where the earth bleeds salt and sulfur, lies the entrance to what the ancients called the abyss of the first dawn. It's a bit of a cosmic joke that modern explorers call this place the hellhole of the world, while the guardians of the 12 gods knew it as the most sacred laboratory of the soul. Here, the laws of biology seem to take a back seat to the raw power of the minerals, a forbidden landscape where the first ancestors learned to transmute the harshness of the earth into the gold of consciousness. The mystery revolves around the lost city of the Salt Lords, a civilization that didn't build with stone or wood, but with the crystalline geometry of the earth itself. They were said to be the keepers of the white flame, a spiritual frequency that could sustain life in the most inhospitable conditions. The conflict arose when the rising tide of organized religion labeled these desert masters as jinn, or fire demons, fearing a people who didn't need a fertile valley or a rainy season to thrive. They were the ultimate outliers, proving that the African spirit could dominate even the most cursed terrains. To understand the rituals of the salt flats is to understand the alchemy of the void, where sensory deprivation and the intense glare of the sun were used to shatter the ego. The initiates would walk the White Plains for 40 days, a number that sounds suspiciously familiar to later religious texts, carrying nothing but a staff of iron and the memory of the 12. This wasn't a punishment, it was a tech of purification, a way to strip away the rust of the material world until only the indestructible diamond of the spirit remained. Spiritually, this forbidden city represents the resilience of the African psyche in the face of total erasure. It's a reminder that even when the libraries are burned and the temples are leveled, the truth remains written in the very salt of our tears and the minerals of our blood. This is the incorruptible legacy, a wisdom that cannot be looted or sold because it requires the fire of the desert to be understood. It's a direct challenge to the modern world's obsession with comfort and consumption, offering instead a path of raw, unyielding power. Today, as the world looks for life on other planets, the Salt Lords of the Danakil sit in the background of history, mocking our short-sightedness. There is a profound irony in seeking the alien when the most extraterrestrial wisdom on Earth is still pulsing under the African crust. But the salt of the earth is only the beginning of the transformation, for as the desert heat rises, it carries our gaze toward the great river of stars, where the 12 gods are preparing for their final, most public revelation. Along the banks of the Niger River, the great city of Timbuktu stands as a testament to an intellectual golden age that the West desperately tried to frame as a myth. It's almost a satirical twist of history that while Europe was grappling with the Black Death and the Crusades, African scholars were debating the intricacies of Islamic law, mathematics, and astronomy in libraries that held hundreds of thousands of manuscripts. They weren't just preserving Greek knowledge, they were expanding it, adding layers of African cosmic philosophy that made the enlightened world look like it was still reading the primer. The mystery is buried within the leather-bound pages of the Sankor Madrasa, where the forbidden scripts describe a universe made of light and vibration, concepts that sound more like quantum physics than 14th century theology. These manuscripts were the dark matter of African history, unseen but holding the entire structure together. The conflict came when colonial invaders viewed these books as dangerous or primitive, leading to a centuries-long game of hide-and-seek where families buried their libraries in the desert sand to protect them from the fire of civilization. To walk through the dusty alleys of Timbuktu is to hear the echoes of the Mansa Musa era, a time when gold was so plentiful it caused inflation in the Mediterranean, but the real currency was ink. The rituals of the scholars involved the sanctification of the pen, where writing was seen as a sacred act that could manifest reality itself. This was a tech of the mind, a way to record the movements of the stars and the shifts in the human soul simultaneously, creating a holistic map of existence that the modern world has since fragmented and lost. Spiritually, Timbuktu represents the fortress of the mind, the proof that the African spirit has always been as cerebral as it is rhythmic. It challenges the forbidden notion that sub-Saharan Africa was an oral-only culture, revealing instead a deep, written tradition of introspection and scientific inquiry. This is the intellectual ancestry that was systematically erased to justify the narrative of a people without history, a lie that falls apart the moment you touch the fragile, ink-stained parchment of a Malian scroll. Today, as these manuscripts are being digitized and brought back to light, the irony is that they are solving modern problems with ancient African logic. The forgotten science of these desert scholars is proving that the path to the future is paved with the wisdom of the past. But as the ink begins to flow again, it leads us away from the city of books and toward the great green walls of the south, where the gods of the forest are waiting to reveal the secret of the living wood. Deep within the emerald canopy of the Congo Basin, there exists a kingdom of shadows, where the trees themselves are said to breathe with the rhythm of the 12. It's quite the irony that modern green movements talk about saving the rainforest as if it were just a collection of timber and oxygen, completely ignoring the fact that for the forest dwellers, this is a conscious, sentient cathedral. While the world was busy building stone walls to keep nature out, the architects of the forest were building a forbidden civilization that lived entirely within the pulse of the living wood, a society that left no scars on the earth, only echoes in the spirit. The mystery revolves around the green sages, a lineage of healers who supposedly mastered the language of the sap, allowing them to communicate across vast distances through the fungal networks of the soil, the original World Wide Web. The conflict here is a clash of frequencies. The colonial machine saw the jungle as a resource to be tamed and extracted, while the sages saw it as a library to be read. By labeling their deep ecological knowledge as animism or jungle magic, the invaders hoped to silence a science that understood the medicinal secrets of every leaf and the spiritual weight of every ancient trunk. To undergo an initiation in the heart of the forest is to experience the dissolution of the self, where the boundaries between human and nature are systematically erased through the use of sacred vines and rhythmic drumming. The rituals involved the Mukanda, a journey into the womb of the world, where the initiate learns that their body is just another branch on the great tree of life. This was a spiritual technology of interconnection, a way to ensure that the human ash remained balanced with the forest's own life force, a harmony that made the concept of pollution unthinkable. Spiritually, the Great Green Wall represents the lungs of the ancestors, a reminder that the African soul is deeply rooted in the biological reality of the planet. It's a direct challenge to the forbidden idea that progress requires the destruction of the wild, offering instead a vision of a high-tech future that is completely organic and sustainable. This is the forest blueprint, a wisdom that teaches us that the most advanced technology isn't made of plastic and metal, but of DNA and spirit. A truth that the modern world is only now beginning to panic by in the form of sustainability. Today, as the chainsaws of industry close in, the forest is beginning to strike back in ways that science can't quite explain, with new diseases and shifting climates that feel suspiciously like an immune response. There is a profound irony in the fact that we are destroying the very pharmacy that holds the cure for our modern malaise. But the secrets of the green gods aren't just in the trees. They are moving back into the cities, carried by a generation that is starting to feel the call of the wild in their very blood, leading us toward the final, most explosive revelation of the 12. In the jagged peaks of the Drakensberg, the mountains of the dragons, the rock faces are covered in a forbidden gallery of San art that functions more like a stargate than a museum. It's a bit of a laugh how art historians try to analyze these pigments as mere creative expression, while the descendants of the painters know they are looking at high-definition maps of the multidimensional soul. They weren't just painting elands and hunters, they were recording the precise moment when the human spirit breaks through the skin of reality into the shimmering realm of the 12. The mystery is hidden in the blood of the earth, a specific red ochre mixed with bird marrow and secret resins that allows the paintings to glow with an eerie internal light under certain lunar alignments. These images were the original cinema, designed to come to life during the rhythmic, stomping dances that heated the spine until the the sacred energy, exploded in the brain. The conflict was a brutal physical erasure where colonial settlers hunted the painters like game, trying to extinguish the only people who knew how to stitch the physical world back to the spirit world when it started to tear. To understand the rituals of the rock shelters is to understand the technology of the Shiva, a state of consciousness where the body becomes a conductor for the planet's electromagnetic pulse. The initiates didn't just look at the art, they entered it, using the paintings as portals to travel to the great river in the sky. This was a forbidden geography that proved the African mind had already mapped the astral planes long before the West had even mapped the Atlantic, a realization that makes the Age of Discovery look like a toddler's first steps. Spiritually, these mountain galleries represent the unbreakable record, a testament to the fact that the African story is literally written in stone and blood. It challenges the forbidden notion that history is only what is written in books, revealing instead a vibrant, living archive that survives in the very frequency of the landscape. This is the ancestral Wi-Fi, a connection that doesn't need a tower or a satellite, just a heart that knows how to beat in time with the drums of the first morning. Today, as the modern world feels increasingly plugged in, but spiritually disconnected, the ancient paintings of the Drakensberg are beginning to vibrate with a renewed intensity. There is a profound irony in people traveling halfway across the globe to see these relics, without realizing that the power they represent is already sitting inside their own DNA, waiting for the right rhythm to wake up. But as the mountain spirits begin to stir, they are pointing their spears toward the Cape of Storms, where the final transition from the old gods to the new world is about to reach its boiling point. At the edge of the world, where the Atlantic's fury crashes against the jagged teeth of the Cape of Storms, the 12 left their most enduring sentinel, the spirit of the Great Mother of the South. It's a bit of a historical joke that the Portuguese explorers renamed this the Cape of Good Hope to soothe their own fears, as if a change in vocabulary could tame the primordial energy that guards the gateway between the oceans. They saw a navigational hazard. The ancestors saw a spiritual crossroads where the salt of the sea meets the iron of the land, a forbidden zone where the veil between the living and the dead is as thin as sea mist. The mystery lies in the Table Mountain Oracle, a natural altar that modern tourists treat as a photo op, unaware that they are standing on the ruins of a cosmic laboratory. Ancient legends whisper of a subterranean network of crystal caves where the high priests of the south once stored the memory stones of the 12 gods before the great erasure began. The conflict here was a total psychic invasion, the building of a European city on top of a sacred vortex, an attempt to pave over the deep, pulsing heart of the African continent with the concrete of commerce and control. To stand on the windswept cliffs is to experience the ritual of the turning tide, a frequency that cleanses the spirit of foreign distortions and returns it to its original, uncolonized state. The original guardians used the roaring winds to sing the names of the gods back into the atmosphere, ensuring that the air of the continent remained saturated with ancestral authority. This was a tech of atmospheric preservation, a way of holding the space for a future where the children of the sun would finally return to claim their own light, no matter how many empires tried to blow it out. Spiritually, the Cape represents the final stand of the African psyche, the place where the soul refuses to be pushed any further into the sea. It serves as a reminder that even at the very tip of the world, the roots of the 12 are anchored in the deep, volcanic fire of the earth. This is the indestructible horizon, a vision that proves that every sunset over the Atlantic is just a rehearsal for a new African dawn that no colonial cloud can permanently obscure. It's the ultimate forbidden hope, the realization that the end of the world is just the beginning of the return. Today, as the Cape of Good Hope becomes a symbol of a new rising south, the irony is that the world is flocking to the very place they once feared as the end of the earth to find a sense of beginning. The ancient energy of the 12 is no longer a secret whispered in caves. It's the roar of the ocean and the grit in the wind, a force that is actively dismantling the old structures from the inside out. But as the tide turns for the final time, it carries us back to the most ancient secret of all, the one that isn't found in a place, but in the very blood that flows through our veins. In the quiet, microscopic world of our own biology, the 12 left their most sophisticated legacy, the ancestral blueprint written in the very spiral of our DNA. It's a bit of a cosmic irony that while scientists were busy decoding the human genome to find diseases, they completely missed the forbidden software of the gods that has been running in the background for over 200,000 years. They call it junk DNA simply because they can't read the language, a language of light and frequency that the African initiates were typing into the human experience long before the first alphabet was ever scratched into clay. The mystery doesn't lie in a lost temple or a buried scroll, but in the epigenetic memory, the way our cells remember the scent of the savanna, the rhythm of the great drum, and the specific vibration of the 12 original principles. The conflict here is a silent internal war. The modern world uses chemicals and digital noise to try and mute this biological heritage, fearing a generation that can tap into the raw, unedited power of their own lineage. They want us to believe we are new and empty, so they can fill us with their own stories. But the blood has a habit of shouting the truth when the mind is forced to whisper. To understand the rituals of the inner sanctum is to realize that every breath is a ceremony and every heartbeat is a drum. The ancient tech of the 12 involved the use of harmonic resonance, specific chants and tones that could literally unlock the dormant segments of our DNA, granting access to a collective consciousness that transcends time and space. This wasn't magic. It was biological activation, a way of ensuring that no matter how far the children of Africa traveled or how much they were forced to forget, the home signal would always be pulsing inside their very marrow. Spiritually, this biological connection represents the infinite continuity, the proof that the African soul is a self-renewing resource that cannot be exhausted or deleted. It's a direct challenge to the forbidden idea that we are separate individuals struggling alone, revealing instead that we are each a walking library of every ancestor who ever survived a drought, a war, or a crossing. This is the sovereignty of the pulse, a realization that your value isn't granted by a system, but is encoded in the very carbon that makes up your being, a truth that makes every external authority look like a temporary shadow. Today, as the global frequency shifts and the old structures begin to crack, the 12 are waking up inside the people, manifesting as a sudden, inexplicable hunger for truth, roots, and dignity. There is a profound irony in the fact that the more the world tries to digitize our lives, the more we feel the pull of the ancient, biological, analog truth. But this internal awakening is only the final preparation. For as the individual sparks catch fire, they are merging into a single radiant flame that is about to illuminate the entire history of the world, starting with a question that Rome hoped you'd never ask. In the sacred silence of the Lalibela rock churches, where the earth itself was carved into the shape of the heavens, the final erased truth is whispered by the wind. It's a masterstroke of irony that the world spent centuries looking for the 12 in the stars or in dusty books, while the African mothers were busy weaving their power into the very hair and stories of their children. The early church thought they had buried the gods under stone and liturgy, but they accidentally provided the perfect safe house for the wisdom to survive, hiding the ancient light inside a new lamp until the world was ready to handle the glare. The mystery reaches its peak in the secret of the 13th pillar, a spiritual concept that suggests the 12 were never meant to be worshipped as idols, but activated as internal keys to a higher state of humanity. The conflict ends not with a battle, but with a revelation. The erased pantheon wasn't killed by Roma, it was internalized by Africa. By forcing the traditions underground, the oppressors inadvertently made them indestructible, turning a public religion into a private, biological certainty that no decree could ever reach. It was the ultimate forbidden survival strategy, to become invisible so that you could become eternal. To walk the final steps of this journey is to experience the reclamation of the crown, where the seeker realizes that they are the artifact they've been looking for. The rituals of the ancestors were designed to bring us to this very moment, the great remembering, where the labels of colonized and forgotten fall away like dead skin. This is the tech of the soul, a realization that the power of Kush, the wisdom of Timbuktu, and the iron of Benin were just rehearsals for the modern African spirit to take its place as the conscious architect of the future. Spiritually, the story of the erased pantheon is the story of the resurrection of identity. It proves that the African continent isn't a developing world, but an ancient world that is merely waiting for the rest of the planet to catch up. The forbidden knowledge is now a public invitation to look at the past not with grief, but with the authority of someone who knows exactly who they are. This is the eternal return, a cycle where the first shall be last, and the erased shall become the very foundation upon which the new world is built. Today, as the sun sets on the era of secrets, the 12 are standing in plain sight, reflected in the eyes of everyone who dares to claim their own history. The irony is finally complete. The very silence that Roma imposed has become the loud, thundering heartbeat of a global movement that cannot be stopped. The story doesn't end here. It simply moves from the page to the pavement, from the past to the pulse. For the gods didn't leave. They just waited for us to remember their names. And now that we have, the world will never be the same again. The dust of the desert and the mist of the mountains have spoken, and the message is clear. The history of the world is not what you were told, but what you were made to forget. We stand today at the crossroads of time, where the forbidden pantheon is no longer a secret buried in the sand, but a fire rising in the soul of a global generation. The early church tried to silence these voices, but they only succeeded in turning a whisper into a roar that now echoes across every ocean and through every heart that yearns for the truth. This journey through the 12 gods is not an ending, but an awakening. The story of Africa is the story of humanity's own origin, a sacred mirror reflecting a power that no empire can ever truly own and no decree can ever truly erase. These mysteries do not sleep. They wait for the bold, the curious, and the resilient to reclaim them. You carry the iron of Benin, the geometry of Kush, and the stardust of the Dogon in your very being. You are the living archive of a glory that never died. As we close this chapter of Revelation, remember that the sand still hides countless cities and the forest still guards forbidden songs. The legacy of the 12 is a call to sovereignty, a reminder that you are a descendant of architects, stargazers, and gods. Respect the past, but do not be a prisoner to it. Use this ancestral wisdom to forge a future that is as radiant and unyielding as the African sun. The circle remains open, and the ancestors are still speaking to those who know how to listen. To ensure you never miss the next secret being pulled from the shadows of time, subscribe to this channel and activate the notifications.